Hi, in this video, we're going to add JSTL support to our classroom project. So far, we've built our MVC framework, but you may have noticed when I was writing the code for the JSP that I made use of scriptlet code. Ooh. And you may have wondered, why not add JSTL? So you may remember from some previous sessions I covered JSTL and how the best practice is to replace scriptlet code with JSTL tags. So I think I should follow my own advice here, or I should practice what I preach. So in this video, we'll actually replace our JSP scriptlet code with JSTL. And you know how I love to-do list here. So what we're going to do in step 1 is that we're going to add our JSTL jar files to our project. Then we'll go through and we'll update our JSP page to make use of the JSTL tags. And in particular, we'll make use of the for each tag. And that's really all we have to do. All the servlet and database code stays the same. We're simply updating the JSP page. All right, so let's go ahead and move into Eclipse. So the first step is adding the JSTL jar files to our project. Now, we're going to add these files into our webinf lib directory. And remember, the webinf lib directory is a special directory where you place any third-party jar files. So as you see, we're making use of this Jdbc driver, and it's already there in our lib directory. So now we want to add the JSTL jar files. So I'll swing over to my Finder or Explorer here, and moving back to the code that we downloaded earlier in the course, we have a directory here for the Web Student Tracker starter files. So we'll expand the directories down to web content, webinf lib. And in this directory, we have 2 jar files that we need. We have 2 JSTL jar files. So what you should do is go ahead and select both of those files, do a right click and choose copy, because those are the files that we want. Okay, great. So those files are copied. Now let's move back over to Eclipse. And in Eclipse, we want to place this information into the web content, webinf lib directory. And then simply do a right click and choose paste. Okay, this looks really good now. So we should have those 2 new jar files for JSTL in our webinf lib directory. So this is really good. So we're kind of set up now with step 1. So we've added those jar files and we're ready to go. All right. So moving forward here in the next step, we want to update our JSP page to make use of those JSTL tags. So let me go ahead and open my file liststudents.jsp. Currently, we have scriptlet code here. We're going to make some modifications to this file. So the first thing I want to do is on line 1 is I want to remove or delete this line of doing the page import. When we're using JSTL, we don't have to do any imports here of Java class libraries. So I'll delete that file. And now what I'm going to do is add in the reference here for the JSTL tag libs for core. So I just did a copy paste here. You can go ahead and type it in, just pause the video and type it in. But I always like to make sure I get this right because the URI has to match exactly, else everything else will fall apart. So make sure you get the first line correct here. Okay, so then we can move down. So we have this section of code here for a scriptlet where we would retrieve the object from the request attribute. We're actually going to delete this because we don't have to use it when we make use of JSTL. So JSTL will do a lot of this work for us behind the scenes. So lines 12 through 16, I can simply highlight them and just hit the delete key. And poof, goes away. Alrighty, now let's scroll on down here. And the next thing we want to do here is we actually want to replace our scriptlet code with JSTL for each. So on line 32, instead of having a normal for loop using scriptlet code, I'm going to replace it with a JSTL tag. And I'm going to put in here for the JSTL for each tag. And I'll grab the end tag and I'll move it down to line 42, line 41, and I'll place it right there just so we have a start for each tag and an end for each tag. Now I need to go ahead and flesh out some items here. So var temp student, that's our temporary variable that we use when we go through the loop. And then items will actually be the attribute name of the data. So this is the same attribute name that was set by the servlet, student underscore list. So this JSTL tag, they'll actually go into that request attribute, they'll actually go to that request object, get the attribute called student list, and then make it available. So they'll do a lot of the work for us behind the scenes, which is a nice feature here of JSTL. All right, great. So now what I'm going to do here is replace my JSP scriptlet expressions here, and I'll replace it with a JSP expression language. So that's the $ curly brace, and you simply give the object name dot the property name. So here I have temp student dot first name, and then I'll just copy this line, and I'll simply paste it for all the others real quick. So I'll just copy this, and then I'll just paste it here for last name, and I'll paste it here for email. And I'll go through and do a quick update here. So temp student dot last name, and I'll do temp student dot email. So as a reminder, when we use this JSP expression language, remember that it'll actually call temp student dot get email. So it'll actually call your getter method here for email. So temp student dot get email. It'll do a similar thing for first name, last name, and so on. So that's basically our for loop now. So instead of using JSP scriptlets here, we're making use of the JSTL tags and making use of the for each tag. So just kind of clean it up a bit. Not much of a big deal there. All right, so let's go ahead and try this out and run it. So I need to go back and run my actual servlet here, our controller servlet. So move back up to my Java resources. Right click on my student controller servlet, and then select run as, and then run on server. And great, so that's the output. So again, no surprises here. Everything's going to work exactly the same. The only difference is that we simply modified our JSP page to make use of JSTL. But to the end user, no real difference. Everything still looks fine, and everything still looks beautiful. Our beautiful table again. All right, great. So that covers it here. We went through and we took our JSP scriptlet code, removed it, and we replaced it with JSTL tags. So good job so far, and good job for following best practices, including myself. All right, see you in the next video.